Hi, everyone. Welcome to our drag briefing. I'll let my colleagues say hello and introduce themselves and where they're from. If I can pass over to you, Cheryl.
Cheryl Blacker from Change Grow Live, which is a substance misuse service within Kirklees.
Thanks, Cheryl. Anne?
Hi, my name's Anne. I'm the HIV Prevention Service Lead at the Brunswick Centre, covering Kirklees and Calderdale.
Amazing. Thank you, Anne. Welcome both. I know we're following this up from our Well Proud conference a month or so back, and we got a really good response around our drag project. So I guess it was just to follow that up and have a bit of a chat today and share some of that more widely, I guess. I just want to run by a couple of questions. If you'd be happy to answer those, that would be great. And it'd be lovely to hear from you both what, I suppose why drag was developed and the gap it filled.
Yeah. Shall I go first, Cheryl?
Yeah.
Right. So drag is short for Discovery, Resilience, Acceptance and Growth for LGBTQ plus people in Calderdale and Kirklees. And it started off, it's aimed at supporting LGBTQ plus people that's affected by substance use, alcohol, and that includes chemsex. It's a focus on providing information, signposting to help individuals find the right path for them. It's also to raise awareness of substance and alcohol use in our LGBTQ plus communities. Members of the LGBTQ plus community, they face many challenges that have contributed to a higher rate of addiction than those who identify as heterosexual. It's estimated that 20 to 30% of the LGBTQ plus community abuse substances compared to about 9% of the general population. And that were a big factor really in, getting this drag project together.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Anne. Yeah, hopefully responding to need that is out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cheryl, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think Anne's covered everything there. Possibly just, it's apparent that many LGBTQ plus communities have felt that mainstream services maybe don't actually offer the support for them that's required. It feels like mainstream services may not, be as open in representing that community. So I think they felt a little bit excluded. So again, drag is, wanting to support that and move it along and bring services up to date.
That's great. That's great. And Anne, I think you touched earlier just about, I suppose, the higher percentages of LGBT people abusing substances. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think LGBTQ plus people face lots of challenges through life, and I think it's harder for them to seek support. I do think when accessing services as well, I think there's a reluctance there to access different services. And I think it's hard enough to admit and seek help for support that you're actually using substances and the shame and the guilt that's attached to that. And then you have the extra burden of having to come out to someone and feel that you might be judged. And I think that just piles on the pressure, and therefore sometimes it's easier not to bother. I think I'm jumping the gun a little bit here, but it's all kind of relevant. And then people can also experience discrimination and barriers when trying to access services. And I think it's the whole challenges of life being LGBTQ plus. There's a lot of pressure there, it's quite complex if you go into it, John. So there's a lot of reasons then why people will turn, if they're anxious and things like that, they'll turn to substances.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's often things like minority stress, homophobia, transphobia, all those kind of things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that can really act as barriers. Cheryl, did you want to say anything on that?
I think the same, really. Obviously, there's the stigma or is perceived around being LGBTQ, and then the same stigma around substance misuse. So again, like Anne said, people are struggling to come out and say that they're out, and then they're going to have to come in and access a substance misuse service as well. and they could actually be using the substances to help them deal with coming to terms with their
Yeah,
own reality and what that might look
absolutely.
like. So
Yeah.
it can really double, if you like, why
Mm,
somebody's using a substance, and then they
absolutely.
have to come in and use a substance misuse service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
get that, Cheryl. And I think
Yeah.
often as humans, we often use substances and tobacco and alcohol to soothe our emotions and our feelings. And if we don't feel great about ourselves, those are often the
Absolutely.
things
Yeah.
we turn to. And I guess when that becomes problematic, that's when we start getting issues. So actually, it's an amazing piece of work that drug services and the HIV service and our LGBT workers all pulled together. I think it's a testament to good work happening locally in Kirklees and Calderdale, which is great. And one of the things I just wanted to check with you both was around chemsex, which obviously we're seeing a lot more of, and I think that does fit very neatly into that notion of people soothing their emotions or just trying to cope with life. And I don't know, and perhaps you maybe would be able to just tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
chemsex.
Absolutely. And just to follow on what you've just been saying, John, as well, I think it's like you could kind of word it like using substances as an emotional walking stick. It's, it's that kind of thing, really. So what is chemsex? I can put this in a nutshell and do it quite simple. It's really complex, but we haven't got the time to go into it all. So simply defining it, it's sexual activity, mostly between men whilst under the influence of drugs. Often takes place with just one or more sexual partners, and increasingly we're finding that men are doing it on their own, using pornography or using cameras. The use of certain drugs, it does enhance and prolong sexual activity. And I do think it's important that services understand the complexities of chemsex and about what it is, and to try and tailor really the appropriate services that they can offer.
Right. Thanks, Sam. Cheryl, did you want to say anything about chemsex?
Yeah, just obviously, I mean, like Anne said, sometimes it's more than one person, but the fact that it is happening like behind cameras, a lot of sex work's going on behind cameras, etc. So just the risks that carries around accidental overdose, somebody's alone now taking these substances, to be able to be on camera and fulfill those acts. But other risks that might come around is like consent.
Mm,
Obviously, if somebody's under the influence, are they actually consenting now to taking part in this? Obviously, risks about their mental health and their sexual health. Again, they may, because they're under the influence of a substance, they may be putting themselves at more risk that they're not really considering at the time
mm, of
that they're taking part in chemsex.
course, of
So
course.
yeah, just looking at those risks and providing, appropriate harm reduction messages for those people. Because
Yeah,
again, in the moment, what they think they know, they may not stick to because they're going to change because they're
of
under
course.
the influence. So making that service accessible, making sure that harm reduction advice is there, but also tailoring the harm reduction advice specifically to adapting somebody being at a party, say,
Mm,
etc. Some of the, the everyday advice that we give might need to be adapted because they're not going to follow it at that time. So, and workers absolutely accepting that advice needs to be tailored to suit that situation because it's quite unique to,
yeah,
to other
yeah,
situations that they might find themselves in.
yeah. No, that's excellent. You both talked about, I guess, the complexities of it and way beyond what
Yeah.
we have time to talk about today. Um, but presumably people could contact our services if they want to have a further chat, and obviously check out both our websites. That's both the Brunswick and CGL if they want further information on chemsex. And I know both you, Anne and Cheryl, have been really passionate about driving this agenda in Kirklees and Calderdale, which is great. And in terms of, I suppose, harm reduction, is there how are you guys getting that out there?
Right.
Sorry.
Sorry. Go on, Cheryl.
So again, Prides, working together at Prides, being in the community, all the joint work that we've been doing, sex on premises, um, places like that, and getting that harm reduction advice out there. But I think mainly the partnership between the two services and referring into each other. So, you know, each service might come across an individual that needs the support of the other service as well. So that
Right.
easy, straightforward referral contact, just phone
Mm.
us up and refer that person in and see what support we can offer them.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
is it,
sorry,
sorry, I was just going to say, Charlotte, because I think that's really interesting. I'm getting a sense, perhaps, that there's a sense of trust between both services, both the
Yeah,
drug service and the Brunswick Centre, but then possibly between community members. So if they don't go straight to you, Cheryl, they'll perhaps go straight to Anne at Brunswick,
yeah,
or indeed vice versa. So you guys
yeah,
have got that relationship and can navigate referrals and stuff. Is that right?
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And I
And
think a lot of, sorry, John.
no, sorry, Anne, I was just going to say, in terms of I suppose, how you get harm reduction messages out, Cheryl was talking about kind of community-based work and work at Prides. I know we have 5 or 6 across our local authority areas, which is a lot of work to cover, but it's great for doing that community engagement. Is there anything else you do around getting messages out around chemsex?
Yeah, lots of stuff really. So if you know if we're doing HIV drop-in sessions, I'll ask people, if they've got any issues around substance
Mhm, mhm,
misuse or use or alcohol, so we can get messages out there.
mhm,
Cheryl and myself, we did a video
mhm.
about what our services can offer, and that's been shown in an adult cinema that we go into regularly, and
Amazing.
and a gay sauna. Yeah, and I think about the outreach and being visible, really, and
Mhm.
that's about building trust and relationships.
Yeah,
So, it raises awareness where it's needed. So when we do outreach and prides and stuff like that, it's reaching communities that it's meant to.
yeah, absolutely.
And it takes it to the communities rather than then having to come to us. And we can start conversations, and it can be a starting point, really, for someone
Mm,
that's
mm.
reluctant to seek help to start a conversation there. Um, we've got resources through drag where we've got information leaflets, postcards, we've got posters in the clinics around chemsex, um,
Amazing.
harm reduction on so we've got as websites and social media. We also do work together around slam packs, and a slam pack is injecting equipment. It's called slamming in the chemsex world, not injecting, all sorts of stuff like that. So,
Mm.
and I think as partners, then we can offer more together. We can put as resources together, and we can offer a lot more, and it's of more benefit to service users.
Mm. No, that's really interesting. And you mentioned social media there.
Yeah.
Could you just say a little bit more about that?
Well, I'm not a great one for social media. I don't know that much, but we've got, is it TikTok and Instagram, and we share posts, don't we, Cheryl? There's posts shared across the organisation. So if one organisation is putting something up, we'll like it and
Mm.
share it, and vice versa. And we've all got websites that will have information on as well.
Yeah. And then further from that, then I guess, on maybe the technical term that we might use would be net reach. So things like
Yes,
through,
yes.
I guess, dating apps and things like that. And
Yeah.
you use that as well, don't you?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So on a weekly basis, I do net reach, and that's looking at different apps, and that's reaching people that's mainly involved in sex work. So it's male, non-binary, and trans male sex workers, but a lot of those are involved in chemsex as well. So send out messages on a weekly basis to those different sites.
Mm. I mean, I think it is just so nice to hear just two professionals, two organizations pulling together using the
Yeah,
resources as best we can, because we know we don't have loads of resources, but
absolutely.
using the skill and knowledge is just fantastic, really. So thank you for that. That's really helpful. And then in terms of, I suppose, Cheryl, you were talking about mainstream services earlier. Is there a question to both of you, really? What do you think mainstream services could do more of or better in terms of trying to engage LGBT communities around their well-being and substance use?
Yeah.
Well, I think certainly for Change Grow Live, we've done a fair bit. All the staff have been trained. We've done the allies training, making making the community feel more seen and welcomed in services. So a lot of our promotional stuff will demonstrate that it's LGBT friendly. And the same with the triages. So somebody who is coming into services, we're making those questions more direct to make sure we're gathering that information, which helps us respond better. And also, it's gone completely out of my mind. Sorry, when the questions are actually asked, so building a relationship with the person
Yeah,
first, making sure that that is in place first before
yeah,
going straight, obviously we have to collect data, but instead of going straight into the data questions, making that a more friendly approach and
Yeah.
making sure, absolutely no judgment whatsoever in the questions that we're asking.
that's amazing. So it is quite literally changing practice, but
Yeah.
in a way that hopefully, by the sounds of it, Cheryl supports the team to do that. I think that's got to be welcomed, and hopefully a good message for other providers who are wanting to
Yeah.
make sure they reach LGBT communities as well. And did you want to say something about that as
Yeah,
well?
I've got a few other kind of. So I think CGL are doing a great job on trying to change the way that they, work with LGBTQ plus communities, which is all to the good. And some of the stuff you've mentioned, Cheryl, I don't want to kind of repeat, but I think for services getting it right, it's about monitoring sexual orientation, monitoring gender identity, visibility, be visible, posters, leaflets, statements, acknowledgement of people's identities, covering all the issues, giving appropriate advice and information. I think staff training and updates is crucial.
Yeah.
And I think in some, not all services are the same, but in services where they have group discussions to include LGBTQ plus issues and perspectives. And I think most of all, to give people the dignity that they should have. And that's, to everybody, and particularly for people from different communities, dignity and non-judgmental.
Absolutely. And I think that cuts across all minoritized communities, or South Asian communities, or Black communities,
Yeah, absolutely.
Roma communities, etc. Absolutely, it's something that we should be trying to do. And then I suppose just very quickly then, just I suppose for the Brunswick provision around, I suppose our better understanding of substance use, and because I think the partnership has brought a lot into us just around our understanding.
Yeah.
Is there anything you wanted to say on that?
I think because we've had training around chemsex, and it's good for me because if there's something I don't know, and obviously I'm not an expert around drugs, but I can just get in touch with Cheryl or somebody else from that service, Recovery Steps, which is a great help for me then. If somebody asks me something, I want some information on something that I don't know, I can get that information for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just as we head to the close, I suppose just a case in point might be, I suppose, the rise in the use of ketamine as a key issue. I know we've definitely seen that in Brunswick. Cheryl, could you just give us a little bit of an overview of ketamine or ketamine use and what it looks like locally in Kirklees and Calderdale?
Yeah, certainly as a service, and not just for the LGBT community, ketamine is really on the high. It's really taken off, and more people are using it, especially the younger end. And we have got a few in the LGBT community as well who've come into service, and ketamine is pretty much the primary substance that they're using. So ketamine itself, and what might make it appealing for the chemsex community. So it is a physical analgesic. So it can, so it's a really strong anaesthetic. So it can help as a numbing agent. So again, depending where somebody's undertaking these sexual practices, that might actually be needed. Do you know what I mean? So it's a necessity, not just a choice. So certainly if somebody's engaging in rougher or longer lasting sexual activities, that could be, of benefit to them to help reduce that pain. It's also a dissociation. So it helps the user feel detached from the bodies and surroundings. So again, people who are engaging in chemsex, when we said earlier, maybe the consent may or may not be there, the consent may change throughout. So just that disassociation from the time and place and the surroundings might be needed. So that might be another reason why they are using it. Obviously, it's still being used with GHB, GBL, crystal meth, and methadone. So those are still the most popular ones, but ketamine is becoming in the same group. It can also give people confidence for those sexual encounters as well. So again, somebody who's starting to engage in chemsex or even coming to terms with a sexual identity might be a reason why they're looking to use it, because it just helps that. Like I said, it can be risky because it is a numbing agent, if you like. So injuries may occur that they're not even aware of at that time. So again, it could be something that happens later. Long-term use is where one of the biggest issues is it does cause severe bladder damage and it reduces your bladder capacity and control. So incontinence can be a real issue for some people. I'm not going to go into the whole clinical side of the damage that's caused, but it is it's really high risk. It's high risk, and the damage that's being caused is quite incredulous. Obviously, there's a risk of overdose as well as mixing it with the other drugs and alcohol. Psychological distress. So some people may experience hallucinations and confusion, and some people might term those as the K-holes. So that's when it's in a real detachment from the reality. And obviously dependency. You can become dependent on it. So again, people might use it infrequently in the beginning, and then they're finding, as with other substances, they need to use it more and more regular, and then it's becoming a daily occurrence. So as a substance misuse service, we are responding to that. Our clinicians and clinical team are all over it, and we're changing the way some of the offering of the service for ketamine users, just to deal with the demand, really, because it's not as infrequent as it was before.
Right. Yeah, that's fascinating, Cheryl. Thank you for that. Yeah, and I've just obviously been aware of it through my sitting on local I can't remember the name of them, the local kind of board meetings around drug use, and obviously then what comes into service through Anne's work as well. So yeah, and again, just the importance, I guess, for drag to have that link with CGL and Brunswick. You make that interesting connection with ketamine around chemsex as well, but not exclusively, of course. I do understand that, but it's just important to see all of this really. Yeah, and I guess some of those, I'm guessing those longer term kind of side effects or whatever you want to call them, Cheryl, are potentially lifelong. Yeah.
The damage to the bladder. We've had numerous clients that's had surgical procedures around the bladder, either trying to repair or remove. Because what it's actually doing is it's crystallising and like jelly forming on the inside of your bladder. So obviously trying to pass that is quite damaging and extremely painful.
Yeah. And I guess drugs like that being available to younger people and then having that as a result, that condition as a result, that's a long time to live with.
It is, and it's happening quite quickly for them. Do you know what I mean? The damage is happening quite quickly. Yeah,
incredible. And again, Cheryl, information on CGL's website around ketamine if people need to get that. That's great. I mean, I think you've both really been fantastic just sharing that information really and just capturing, I think, the importance of drag and the relationship that you both personally have as colleagues, pulling that together. I think you've definitely been really driving that forward, and that's really amazing to hear, really. And I think I would hope on other areas across the country that services are pulling together like that, because there's real value in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and just before we close, then, is there anything either if you'd like to say in terms of just where you would like to see drag going in the next year or two?
Just a couple of things for me, John. So I'd like it to expand on what we're already doing, and that to keep learning from each other and sharing, sharing information and experiences, and updating each other, because things change all the time, don't they? So that's a big one for me. And can I just finish off by saying as well that when we talk about chemsex, it all sounds doom and gloom, and for a lot of people it is, and it does become an issue for people. But there's an awful lot of men that are involved in chemsex where it's not an issue and it is pleasurable for them, and they can function, shall we say. Yeah. So I don't want to give the message out that everybody that uses chems, are these people that's in dire financial, emotional, need, because it's not the case for everybody.
And I guess that's the case with any substance use or alcohol.
It is.
People can be high performing, keeping jobs down, etc. I guess just long term substance alcohol use physiologically and mentally isn't maybe the best thing. So while I guess there's probably coping and managing and maybe even thriving in the here and now, long term that maybe could be a different story. But you're right to point that out, Anne, because I think particularly with substance use, it can often be, there's often a notion of what that is and what that looks like. So no, that's a fair point.
Yeah, Cheryl, we're thinking about chemsex in particular.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Cheryl, did you want to add anything?
I think just like Anne's touched on a little bit there, like wider cultural changes across all services, because chemsex is more and more common than it used to be.
Yeah.
And it is, it's changing the way that looks as well. Do you know what I mean? So it used to just all be parties like we touched on earlier. Now it's, people doing camera work, porn sites, etc. So it's changing. So I think people need to understand that better and be more confident in asking those questions, because those are the questions that really matter. And like Anne said, it's not all doom and gloom, but that is where people are getting their enjoyment and stuff. And we need to accept that for some it is an enjoyable experience and they're going to continue to take part in it. So we need to, increase our commitment really into supporting them, but doing it safely. Absolutely.
And reducing harm. Absolutely, Cheryl. Yeah. So just to thank you both for your time today. I think it's been great just to be able to have a conversation and hopefully share this more widely, and people will learn something from it, and obviously they can reach out to us either through our websites or give us a call at our services. So thank you both very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.